Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Quill audiobook series. And we are continuing our story with Amyntas, son of Persia. Now, where I last left off, the Battle of the Krita was a sounding victory for Amyntas and his allies. They have bested Alexander of Macedonia, and they have won. But the battle's not over yet, because now they have just learned that the Carthaginians have reached the mainland. They have now launched their invasion force from Marathon, and they have to stop them. They cannot let them get past Marathon. So now, let's see what happens in this second battle of Marathon in chapter 17. The army was given no time to rest, as they immediately went on the march again towards Marathon. Amyntas knew that the Numidian cavalry had already had a head start on them and was miles ahead. However, Amyntas and his allies could not afford to quit now. They have come too far to stop. The army marched, hungry for blood, from Plataea's fields to Athens' outskirts. With the morning turning to afternoon and slowly entering midday, they finally arrived at Marathon's fields. Marching up a slight incline, Amyntas and the other commanders hid behind a hill. As they peeked over, the young Spartans saw the massive invading army. Men were already disembarking from ships and already camping along the shore. These soldiers were a mix: Iberians, Libyans, Celts, Carthaginians, Numidians, and others all made camp along the shore. He also saw strange gray beasts with long white teeth and soldiers mounted on their backs. This is going to be a tougher fight. That's quite the invasion force, said Amyntas. He remembered Xerxes leading 10,000 soldiers only a few years ago, but his army nearly doubled that. I see the cavalry who reached the shoreline, said Themistocles. He pointed to them making camp. Though only a few yards away, the Greeks saw the outline of the commander. Amyntas instantly knew who it was. You gotta be kidding me. It's Sicarbal, said Amyntas. Friend of yours? Asked Mardonius. More or less. He's the man Artabanus sold us to after the battle in Macedonia. He's also the one who saved our lives back in Carthage. I had hoped not to meet him again. Yeah, it seems destiny had other plans for us, replied Leonidas. After surveying their enemies, Amyntas believed that the Carthaginians had about 20,000 men. How many men did we lose against Alexander? Less than 100, replied his father. Amyntas let out a huff. We have to take them now, said Amyntas. The others voiced their concerns. Amyntas, you want us to make a surprise attack on a force that size? Questioned Themistocles. It's suicide. We'll die, stated Amonfredos. We're not going to kill them all. We need to draw them in, he said. What are you planning exactly? Amyntas turned to Artaxerxes. Did you bring the stone and the staff like I asked? The prince nodded and showed the items to the others. Themistocles looked at the Spartan with shock and awe. You're betting your success, our success, on that? Amyntas, the story is a legend, nothing more than a myth. Then let's test that myth once and for all, said the Spartan. How? Asked Mardonius. Amyntas pointed to the sun on their backs. Though it was still afternoon, the sun's rays were not over them. Though sun will be over us in 15 minutes, we need to hold out until then. You are one crazy bastard. You know that? Said Themistocles. Crazy enough. And my craziness had gotten us this far, he replied. Looking back at the army again, he saw the faces of weariness and exhaustion. He closed his eyes and let out a sigh. Brothers, do you have the strength to fight once more? Are you positive of the report? Asked Sicarbal. Yes, Commander. The Greeks overtook Alexander and his men. They're on their way as we speak, replied the Numidian general. Sicarbal looked to the hills and pondered when the Greeks would arrive. Most men, including the sacred band and the war elephants, were already on land. However, many mercenaries had chosen to stay on the boat until they recovered from the long voyage. Have men stationed around the camp and guard our position. We will attack later once everyone has settled in, said Sicarbal. The Numidian saluted and went to relay the others. As Sicarbal went to tend his horse, he heard a faint sound. Looking into the sky, he saw no birds. Then the sound grew louder. It was a whistle of some sort, and it was coming from the sky. Suddenly the whistling sound stopped as an arrow stuck to the ship's side. The Carthaginians knew what was happening. "Shields!" he shouted. Suddenly, a rain of arrows fell upon the Carthaginians. The Celts, Numidians, and Iberians suffered the most, while the heavy Carthaginian hoplites repelled the assault thanks to their armor. After the arrow fire, a roar emerged from over the hills just before them. Then a wave of red descended from the mountain. "The Spartans are upon us! To battle, men!" As the mercenaries gathered their weapons and rushed to meet their foes, Sikarbal and the rest of the sacred band stayed behind. "Should we help them, sir?" said a member of the sacred band. "No, they're mercenaries. Let them do the job they were paid to do," replied Sikarbal. "Shield wall!" yelled Leonidas. Getting into formation, the Spartans stood together as they faced a wide ferocity of the Celts. This was an enemy neither Spartans nor the Persians had ever encountered before. Standing strong, the phalanx stood firm against the foreigners. However, the Celts were pushing the Spartans back further up the hill. "Push forward, men!" yelled Nicholas. The Spartans buried their heels into the dirt and pushed themselves against the shields. "Is that the best you can do?" yelled Themistocles. Then, still fueled by the battle prior, the Spartans regained the advantage and drove the enemy back down the mountain. The mercenaries' defense quickly gave way under the pressure as they pushed deeper into the enemy's camp. When one of the defenders retreated, the Spartans took over the Carthaginians. It was more of a brawl than a fight. Both sides made a mess of things. As Amyntas looked up the mountain, he saw Artaxerxes with the staff, waiting for the sun. In the camp, Sinkerball and the rest of the sacred band watched as the Spartans and their allies fought hard against their mercenary force. "Commander, the mercenaries will be overrun. What is your order?" Sinkerball turned to the 15 war elephants that were stationed on the beach. "Send the elephants. They will cause panic and chaos in the fighting. After that, attack and kill any survivors." "Understood," said the sacred band member. With a whistle, the massive beast slowly approached the battlefield. Back with the Greeks, Amyntas plunged his sword deep into the chest of a Celt, and saw the grey beast approaching them in the distance. It was now or never. He looked at the prince, who was still waiting for the sun to arrive. Suddenly there was a roar as a beast of war towered into the fight. Their presence caused panic and chaos, just as Sikarbal predicted on both sides. Their trunk-like limbs thundered across the marathon plains and were unafraid. The Spartans taunted the beast with their spears, making them even more dangerous. Spartan phalanx soon broke as the elephants charged with them, crushing a few under their massive weight. Artaxerxes watched in terror on the hill as he saw his friends fighting for their lives. His hearing painted a visual picture in his mind. He prayed for the sun to arrive. Suddenly he feels a warm sensation on his back. The sun was just over him. Placing the staff high in the air, he waited for the power of the staff to commence. But nothing happened. There was nothing. Only the sound of battle. Artaxerxes was confused. The legend said it needed the sun's power to make the staff work, but nothing. Artaxerxes feared that Themistocles might have been right. Perhaps it was just a legend. "It didn't work," gasped Artaxerxes. "It didn't work," growled Amyntas, still fighting against a score of mercenaries. His Persian Spartan brothers were dying around him. For every 3 mercenaries that were killed, 15 Persians and Spartans died along with them. Their numbers were beginning to dwindle, and the tide of battle has shifted in favor of the Carthaginians. "Seems your plan is working, sir," said the soldier. Sikarbal smiled. Drawing his sword, he ordered his troops to attack. "Sacred band! Loyal sons of Carthage! Advance!" Sikarbal and the remaining soldiers led the charge to finish up the Greeks. Panic was beginning to take hold. "Amyntas, what the hell happened? The Carthaginians are not dead!" yelled Themistocles. Amyntas could not reply. He remembered a similar incident during the gathering, when Amyntas and his allies went against Zeus and the Pantheon's remaining members during the final battle against Kairos. They almost lost, but managed to come out on top. "Amyntas, what do we do?" yelled Mardonius. Amyntas quickly formulated a plan in his hand. "It was a risk, but what other choice did he have?" "Take out the elephants!" "How?" yelled Mardonius. "Aim for the heads, cause them to panic, and the beasts will be useless to no one." Amyntas hoped that this little distraction would give the prince enough time. "Come on, work, you stupid thing," said the prince. He repeated the process again and again, but still nothing. He was about to break the staff when his hands ran across an engraving on the handle. It was a Persian inscription. As he read the words, he discovered a prophecy was etched onto the staff in ancient Mycenaean. It read, "Only a man made in darkness and unfearful of the light can wield the power of the phoenix by uttering the prayer." He searched the staff for the blessing, finally finding at the back of the bird's skull. Rubbing his fingers Over the phrase, he read the prayer. Trying again, he held the staff close to him. Celestial Mother, glory be to you. Witness me in my time of need. Lead me so I may repel the evil forces. I ask of this as your humble servant, the bringer of life. Empower me with your heavenly warmth. After he finished the prayer, he felt the staff hum in his hands. Then a strange force took over the prince. Blue fire emerged and began to burn away at the sleeves, leaving blue Persian symbols on his arms. The pain was similar to what Amyntas experienced when he recovered his memories. He tried to scream, but he could not, and endured the pain. Suddenly, the blue fire engulfed his face, but did not burn or melt away his skin. Instead, the flames healed the scars across his face and changed his eye color to a light blue. Soon the pain subsided, and Artaxerxes was reborn anew. Taking the staff once more, he raised it high into the air. Suddenly the clouds began to change from light to dark. The atmosphere changed as well, and the fighting soon stopped. Everyone turned their attention to the top of the hill. Beware the light, said Artaxerxes, as a wave of blue fire encompassed the fields of Marathon. Men began to scream in pain as they were burned alive. Some tried to run into the ocean, but to their horror, not even the waves could douse the flames. Even the mighty elephants were rendered useless against the fire. However, neither Amyntas nor his allies were touched by the blue flame. They were spared. As the enemy screamed before them, the Greeks and the Persians watched in shock at the marvel they had just witnessed. What in the gods' name was that? Asked Themistocles. No one could answer, for they did not know. Amyntas, however, smiled with pride and said to himself, the Prince of Persia had returned. Chapter 18. After the power of the phoenix subsided, Amyntas and the others looked at the carnage left behind. The ground was scorched black, and the bodies of the Carthaginians were charred to a crisp. Nothing remained except a few survivors who fled from the flames. Amyntas ordered them to be rounded up and to be taken as prisoners. Though they won the second battle of Marathon, they were not without their losses. Many Spartans and Persians died on this day, leaving them only a third of the army. Themistocles and the other generals tended to the men's wounds, while Leonidas and Nicholas gathered up the dead. Anahita stood next to her future husband, also examining the aftermath. So much death. I've never seen anything like this, she replied. I have, said Amyntas. When? He wanted to tell her the truth, but no words could escape his mouth. Anahita, I have something to tell you. You see, Amyntas, we found him, said a Persian soldier. Amyntas left his betrothed and went with the soldier. The soldiers presented the leader of the sacred band, Sikarbal. My. Yes, so it is you, said Amyntas. The leader of the sacred band was dirty. His armor was tarnished. His men were scattered or taken away. However, despite the situation, he was proud and defiant still. Amyntas pointed his sword at his neck. What to do with you, then? Asked Amyntas. Kill him, said Pausanias. Throw him into the ocean, added Amonfretus. Unbind him, said a voice. Everyone turned around and saw Artaxerxes, but he was different now. His arms glowed with blue Persian symbols, and his eyes were a vibrant blue. Amyntas was taken aback for a moment, and thought Kairos had returned. My lord? Asked Amyntas. The prince chuckled. My appearance has greatly changed, said the prince. Amyntas noticed that the prince was staring directly at him. Can you see me? In a way. The magic from the stone healed my eyes, but not my vision. I can see a person's aura around him. It is unusual, but nothing I can't handle. His gaze then turned to Sikarbal, and he ordered the soldiers to unbind the Carthaginian soldier. Cutting the ropes, Sikarbal rose and looked at the mystical man before him. No longer the blind man, I see, said Sikarbal. No longer the invasion commander. You have lost many good men and sons in this battle. I want to give you an offer. Join us. Amyntas gasped, as did the soldiers. My lord, you can't be serious, pleaded the Spartan. The prince raised his hand. Amyntas, trust me. I cannot join you, my lord. My loyalty is to Carthage and my king. I would expect nothing else. Rather, let me rephrase. I want you to join us in defeating Artabanus. He is a serpent whose coils have enveloped our lives, Sikarbal sneered. Why would I do that? Sikarbal, look around you. Your army is destroyed, your men are prisoners, and you have no way home. I know you to be a man of honor. Can you truly return back to Carthage after a defeat such as this? Your name will be smeared and worth nothing. You'll be a beggar, stripped of value and title. A man such as you does not deserve that kind of fate." The Carthaginian sneer disappeared, knowing the prince was right. He belonged to one of Carthage's wealthiest and most privileged families. To return would ruin his family's name and standing in the aristocracy. He could not allow that to happen. "If I agree to this, what will I receive in return?" The prince thought for a moment, and Amyntas showed him the guild seal. "There is a secret order in Persia. For years they have plotted in the shadows. They helped Artabanus kill my father and destroy my grandfather's legacy. Help us, and their treasure belongs to you and to your men." Artaxerxes could not be sure if the guild had any wealth, but they needed a way to get to Babylon. Thinking long and hard, Secret Ball extended his hand. "You have a deal, and I expect you to uphold it." Artaxerxes shook the man's hand. "You have my word. Amyntas?" "With me," said the prince. Amyntas bowed and gave an order to have Secretball's men untied. With the last of his men freed, Secretball ordered his men to raid the last surviving boat. While the Carthaginians tended to their men, Amyntas and Artaxerxes talked amongst themselves. "Can we really trust him?" asked Amyntas. "I trust him enough to know that he needs us, just as we need him," replied the prince. "Could you tell he was a man of honor? He spared our lives back in Carthage. Any man would have killed us." After a brief talk, Amyntas gathers allies for one final council. "This is where we part. The prince and I travel to Babylon to end this war once and for all." "Son, you can't go alone." "Neither of you. Let us come with you," said Nicholas. Amyntas shook his head. "No, father. I need you all here to protect Greece. It must be us." Themistocles then spoke up. "Before you say another word, I'm coming with you. You dragged me here, and I'll be damned if you think I'm going to be left here again." Artaxerxes knew it was pointless arguing with the Athenian. "Very well," said Themistocles. "You will accompany us." Just then, Pausanias and the others joined. "We're coming as well," said Plaistarchus. "You can use an extra sword hand," said Amyntas. "Or two," added Pausanias. Amyntas smiled and shook his head. "My friends, you must stay with the king. They need you," he said to them. Pausanias spoke up with a group. "What about you? We thought you were dead for 6 years," he told them. "I have no intentions of dying. Not now, and not ever," he said. "How can you be so sure?" asked Amyntas. "Simple. The hand of death could not defeat me, nor could the sisters of fate hold me," he said confidently. Nodding in agreement, Pausanias and the others agreed to stay behind. "My lord, the ship is ready," shouted Secretball, who waited for them. "It's time," said Amyntas. Before they left, they were stopped by Anahita, holding a Spartan shield. "I'll give you two a moment," said the prince, who went onto the ship. Anahita and Amyntas stared into each other. "Anahita, I'm sorry. She stopped him and handed him a shield. "With your shield, or on it," she said. He looked at her with surprise, and then smiled. Planting a kiss on her forehead, he took the shield from her and placed it on his back. "I will come home to you," he said to her. Anahita smiled and sent her husband away. Heading to the ship, he looked at his home again. In the back of his head, he wondered if he would come home at all. He quickly pushed those thoughts out of his mind. "So, where do we go?" asked Amyntas. "South, to Sais, the capital of Egypt. If we can survive the weather, it's a 10 days ride to Babylon." "Weather? Babylon's in the center of a desert. The sands get so hot this time of year that a person can almost die in their armor or being cooked to death," said Artaxerxes. Amyntas looked outward towards sea. "Seems our odyssey is not over yet, my prince. Are you ready?" "I am. Let us finish this tale once and for all." Chapter 19. The journey from the Aegean Sea into the Mediterranean was long and dangerous. The ocean's mighty waves nearly capsized the party on a few occasions. During the last trudge of the journey, the prince and Amyntas had a chance to discuss their plans once they reached Babylon. "You know Artabanus will be difficult to get to. Babylon is currently engrossed in civil war." "I know," replied the prince. "When we find him, we must kill him." "Yes, my prince. But it must be you to deliver the final blow." Amyntas, you could easily kill Artabanus with your skills, said the prince. True, but no one will see your succession as legitimate. If you want to be the true king of Persia again, as is your right, you must end his life. Not me, said Amyntas. You think I can? Artaxerxes, have you learned nothing from the lessons I taught you? Sorry, Amyntas, it's just... I've been away from home for so long, and now... with it almost in reach, I don't know what to do. When the time comes, well, we'll figure it out together. I'll be by your side every step of the way. Artaxerxes smiled. We're here, said Sikarbal. The crew turned their head to the ship and saw the outline of a shore. Further, it was home to one of the ancient world's most prosperous and beloved cultures. Gentlemen, welcome to Egypt. Sais, Egypt, 473 BC. After landing in a port miles from the capital, the crew got their first taste of Egyptian culture. All around them, they heard languages none had heard of or smelled the spices foreign to them. For Amyntas and Artaxerxes, Egypt was just like Carthage. As they walked further into the harbor, they realized they needed horses to continue their journey. Heading further in, the party found a stable hand caring for his horses. Amyntas went to approach the man when Sikarbal stopped him. I'll go, said the Carthaginian. We both go, stated Amyntas. You don't trust me? Only to see the job done, replied the Spartan. Growling, Sikarbal and Amyntas went to speak with the boy. The young Egyptian noticed two shadows on the ground and looked up to see two potential customers. Hello, gentlemen. How may I serve you both? Said the stable hand. We would like to purchase some horses for a journey. And how many horses do you require? Enough, Amyntas said. The Egyptian showed the pair his best selection of horses, which were in excellent condition and beautifully presented. After examining the stock, Amyntas wanted to know the price for his best horses. 100 silver pieces, said the owner. Sikarbal was furious. 100? I can purchase a similar stock back home in Carthage for half that amount. Well, sir, this is not Carthage. Maybe you should have stayed back home. Sikarbal grabbed the young boy by the throat and lifted him in the air. The Egyptian tried to fight back. Say that once more and I'll break your neck. Let him go, Sikarbal. Let him go. The Carthaginian glared at the Spartan, but obliged. The stable hand rubbed his throat for a while. Apologies for my friend. We don't have that kind of silver. But I understand that Egyptians barter. Perhaps we can trade something of equal worth. Depends on what you have to offer, replied the Egyptian. Amyntas thought about this very carefully. What did his party have that the young man could make another sale on? He could not sell his sword, shield, or helmet, and he couldn't sell the stone. What could he sell? I have something, says Themistocles. The Athenian walked up to the owner and reached to his pocket. Inside he pulled out a handful of gold and silver trinkets he acquired while in Sicily. The charms amazed the young man, and said this would suffice. Taking a dozen of his best horses, the party began their journey towards Babylon. Before they left, Amyntas questioned the Athenian. Where did you get those trinkets? Bought them off a smuggler. Those could have been worth a lot, Themistocles chuckled. Doubt it. They are bronze pieces covered in gold and silver paint. The journey out of Egypt was comfortable, but crossing into the desert of the Levant, that was a challenge. The blistering heat rained down its harmful rays. It was so hot that the party had to remove their armor to stay conscious, except for Amyntas. He wore his armor alone. Sikarbal was dumbfounded. No mortal man could survive this. But for Amyntas, the sun meant nothing. He remembered the scorching heat from his and Symbol's journey towards the blood-sand arena. That desert was much worse. I don't understand him, said Sikarbal. How can anyone survive this ocean of sand and this blistering heat with a full suit of armor and not get tired? Amyntas is no ordinary man, said Artaxerxes. I heard stories of Spartans and how they were trained to be killers at birth, to show no fear, and to be weapons of war for their king. But this is unheard of, replied Sikarbal. You didn't learn all of this in Sparta, muttered the prince. They realized their 10-day voyage was going to be much longer as they continued. If the blazing heat did not hamper them, then the random sandstorms did. The party had to stop to protect themselves from the burning sands for several days. After the storm subsided, they were beginning to run low on food and, most importantly, water. And they'd be forced to kill and eat one of the prized horses if they did not find provision soon. However, Amyntas rallied his crew and told them to never give up. His boat of confidence inspired the men, or somewhat irritated them. Nonetheless, they continued onward. For almost 4 weeks, through moments of hell and fire, the party made their way out of the desert into the valley of rocks and stones. By this time, they have used up all their food and water. Secretball's men were dying of thirst, while others were dying of hunger. When all hope seemed lost, Amyntas spotted a small oasis with trees. With their last hour of strength, the party rushed towards their salvation. Before getting near the water, men jumped off their horses and threw their heads into the cold liquid. Besides the water, the oasis had small birds to eat. After gulping down some water, Amyntas and the others gathered up the birds and snapped their necks. Afterwards, they built a fire and cooked their meal. "Thank goodness you found this place," said the prince, taking a sip of water. "How far are we from Babylon?" "Perhaps a week or two. If we stock up on supplies, we'll make it there possibly earlier," said Secretball. They began taking pieces of meat off the small avians. Just then, Smithcles noticed a little sand cloud approaching them. At first, he thought it was a sandstorm, but he saw faint images emerging within. His eyes widened. "To arms, now!" yelled the Athenian. Dropping their food, Amyntas and the others grabbed their weapons. As they prepared for battle, the sand cloud approached them, dispersed, and as the sand settled, the small party was surrounded by a large company of Persian cavalry. With Amyntas giving the order to form a shield dome, Artaxerxes noted that the Persians surrounding them were not dressed as the ones they fought back in Greece. No. Breaking away from the shield wall, Artaxerxes removed his hood, allowing everyone to see his face. He then spoke to the Persian cavalry. "My name is Artaxerxes, son of the late king Xerxes, and the rightful heir of the Persian throne. I see men loyal to my father and the principles of the true Persian Empire before me. I have returned to reclaim my homeland. Will you help us?" Soldiers of the cavalry began to stir, not knowing if they should trust these men. Then the cavalry leader dismounted from his horse and approached the Persian prince. Removing his helmet, he knelt before the prince and proclaimed before all his men, "I, Megabeus, swear loyalty and fealty to the one true heir of the Persian throne." Artaxerxes smiled. "Arise, my old friend," he said, acknowledging another one of his old teachers. The aging Persian arose and stared at the prince. "Welcome home, my lord." And with that, we will stop here. So, Artaxerxes is now officially a sorcerer, and he's back home. Almost. And they now are so close to defeating their true enemy, Artabanus. Well, I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you again for your love and support. And this is the Wandering Scribe, signing out.